Welcome to our third month of the Intuitive Textile Challenge. This month's challenge is called Rub-a-Dub Color. For this month, I want you to grab a piece of fabric. I'm using cotton. It's best to have something that is a natural fiber so that our colors will penetrate and stay on top of the fabric. But I want you to grab that piece of fabric. And I want you to run around the house and we're going to do rubbings. I've got some stencils here. I want to find the cover the background in as much texture as we can from rubbings. So you will grab anything that will make color. I have Distress crayons. I have Neo Color 2 water soluble crayons. I have some Prismacolor art sticks. These are not water soluble, but they will do a great rubbing. They're like regular colored pencils, only in a block form. I have acrylic paint, which will be permanent and water soluble while it's still wet. I have some Tombow markers. I have some Portfolio water soluble oil pastels. I have some Prismacolor watercolor pencils, and I have some Derwent Inktense blocks. These are just some ideas. Anything that will add color is what we're going to use. I have some stencils to rub on. Under these stencils there is a mat with some good texture. This is a thick mat, like actually my husband used this in the garage as the mat to stand on. It's like a durable mat. I have some rubbing plates. I have the cushion that I use in my seat when I'm at the sewing machine. Got lots of texture. The rest of the challenge is who can come up with the most unusual rubbing. You may have to go outside. You may have to leave your home. But I want to see the most unusual, interesting rubbing. Okay, this fabric is very soaked. I've just taken my hands and kind of rubbed over it to blend the colors a little better. I have one of my extremely dirty stencils underneath, and I am going to leave the wet fabric on there until it dries, and I will come back tomorrow and add another layer. Okay, I came back. It's not dry. It's just been a few minutes, but I wanted to show where the sprays and inks that were on my stencil are now coming through. So not necessarily a rubbing, but an unexpected surprise, and I really like it the way it looks. And it is definitely coming through on that fabric. This will be a great addition. All right, it's the next morning. It's completely dry. I love the dots. They stayed very nicely. You can see the stencil. These flowers that you see are all from residual paint and sprays on my very disgusting stencil. You can see a little bit of the striping from the mat that's underneath. And now I'm going to take this piece on an adventure. I'm going to take some of my supplies, my art sticks that are not water soluble, take a couple of water soluble things, and I'm going to run around the house and find out what textures that I can find to go with this. I went on my little adventure and I have lots of rubbings. I have a metal table that's outside in my yard. I have a chair seat that's in my yard. There's parts of an outdoor patio set. I did some rubbings on the aggregate sidewalk, and I visited my mother's grave, and this is my mother's name, Mary Ann. I lost my mother in 2004, and everything, I attribute everything that I do artsy to her. She tried it all. She was a textile lover. She would do knitting, she tat, she would do crochet, she was an avid quilter, and if there was a new product or a new technique, she was the first one to try it, and I'm sure we can all relate to that. So I felt like I wanted to do a little rubbing to tribute her in this piece. So after all of these rubbings, I layered it with a little bit of batting. This could be felt, it could be some fleece, anything to give it a little cushion because we're going to stitch through it. And I drew just simple flowers on some deli paper. Very, very simple. I'm going to take thread and I'm going to sew right through this deli paper, and then I'm going to remove the deli paper and leave the sketchy flowers on top of my piece. Now my piece is a little larger than my pages from my journal, so I will probably cut it down once it's stitched out. It's a little easier to stitch a larger piece, and then I can kind of audition what pieces I want and may want to cut it smaller. So we'll see. All right, we're back at the machine, and I have my drawing of my flowers and my vase on top of the fabric, and I have pinned it. I did pin it down. You do not have to use deli paper. Tissue paper would be fine here. Just generic white printer paper would be fine here. I did place it on the fabric, and I can see the print behind it. I know I'm going to add more paint after I stitch, so I am going to stitch this out, and we'll take it from there. I did leave a border around the edge. I'm going to put this right sides together and turn it so that the edges are finished on this piece, and so I did want to leave at least 1/4 to 1/2 inch on the edges. So let's get this. You do not have to machine stitch this piece. You could certainly do some beautiful hand stitches here, and they would be gorgeous on this. You could just draw this. I'm going to use a little bit of Stabilo All colored pencil and other colored pencils on this when I'm done. You could skip the stitching stage completely and just draw this on and paint it. It'd make a great canvas. So I'm going to stitch this out. Alright, we're just going to remove this paper. Some of the pieces may be very tiny. We may have to get some tweezers to get those out, especially where I went over the line several times. I'm going to get all of this off camera and I'll be right back. Alright, I have all of the paper off. It actually came off pretty easy. The needle perforated the paper and it just came right off. There are some little bits left and that doesn't bother me. So I've got some watercolor pencils, I have my Neocolor 2s, and I have my Derwent Inktense blocks. And I'm just going to color this in and see where it goes. I have a Stabilo All pencil here, and if any of you own a Stabilo All, you know this is going to be a risky move. This is highly pigmented, it's very dark, but I kind of feel like I want to play with it and I want to see what it'll do. So I'm going to bring some of that in. So I am just going to start coloring. I have a couple of brushes here. A few of them have some pretty stiff bristles. And that will help me move the color in when I wet it. You know, guys, as I'm coloring this in, I really would like these flowers to be white. And I know that I have some opaque white paint, and I think I want to go over and activate the yellow that I added here with the white paint and see if I can get this to, get those flowers to kind of pop off the page a little bit. I really do think this piece needs something kind of bright. And then I may use that Stabilo All to either shade the flowers, or I think I may use it in the opening of the vase. But we'll see. I'm going to go get that white paint. Alright, here is the opaque. It's by Jacquard and it's called Super Opaque Texture and Marbling Color. And it is very, very white and it will cover well. I also grabbed the Pearl Lumiere by Jacquard. I may play with that a little bit too, but I'm going to do these flowers. here's my public service announcement. All you supplies hoarders out there like me, use your supplies. I just opened this up. I'm not sure how long I had it. It's very dry. It's very hard to use. I'm able to get some out and maybe mix it with water, but this is sad. Let's use those supplies. Tell me in the comments below, what is the one supply that you've been holding on to that you haven't used? Alright, my page is all stitched out. I did end up cutting it down a bit so it's close to the same size as my other pages from January and February. I did do a right sides together and turned it around so the edges were finished, even though that's going to be covered by the next month's page on the back. I didn't pay a lot of attention to that. It is stitched out. I added a little more pink to the centers, made this a little darker, and added the lace at the bottom. Then I grabbed my big jar of vintage buttons that was my grandmother's and started playing with some of them. I have some nice rusted buttons and some very interesting ones. And I came across these that were all in the same color family. They don't really go with the colors that I have in my page, but for some reason these are really calling me. I really like the way this burgundy color looks. So I may go back in and add some burgundy to the centers. I may add something to the background, but I think I'm going to add those buttons down here on the lace. I just really like the way that looks. And so that leaves us with this month's challenge. I think this is pretty open to anyone. Just do some rubbings. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. You don't have to add all the layers. You can just take some fabric and rub it on different textures and call that your page, because it's a good reference to come back to later. Got this cute little key. Isn't that adorable? And a little hint for next month's challenge. I would like for you to start saving your used tea bags and your used coffee filters. We are going to have fun with those. See you next time.